In this unit, you will examine a video case study of collaboration in action. This video tells the story of a unit of work that was carried out in Paula's classroom. It focused on the human body and well-being. Please watch this video and see how the learning activity builds the children's knowledge and skills. This video is a synopsis of a unit of work which was carried out by Paula and 2 other teachers in a multi-grade classroom setting in Finland. The 3 teachers worked with 35 children who were in 1st and 2nd grade and were aged 7 to 9 years old. The unit of work is entitled Studying the Human Being. In groups of 3 to 5, the children were tasked with designing and creating a presentation and an action task on a particular aspect of the human body, which they then would present at a learning fair. The human body is a strand in the national curriculum in Finland and focuses on aspects of the human body such as body parts, the different stages of life, childhood, youth, adulthood and old age, nutrition and hygiene, exercise and rest, bones and muscles, digestion, breathing and blood circulation, and brains and the senses. Each group focused on one of these areas. Prior to starting the project, a number of goals were agreed by the teachers together with the students, including cooperation in groups, making compromises and negotiation skills, taking responsibility for the group's work, self-regulation and group control, creativity in the outcomes, learning new knowledge on the human body and well-being, learning to use the new Windows hybrid tablets that had just arrived to the school, and learning how to use Office 365, especially OneNote. During the first lesson, the teachers worked to establish what the children already knew about the human body. Working in groups, the children were asked to write on sticky notes the key words that came to mind when they thought about the human body and well-being. Each group had to agree which key words they would write on the sticky notes, and the children had to take turns writing one key word per post-it. A mind map was used to represent the key words the children had come up with. As you can see in the picture, the white labels represent the topic headings such as body parts and digestion. These headings were provided by the teachers, and the groups had to negotiate and decide where each of their key words belonged. The process of how to do this was explained to the students by the teacher. This was the only time she explicitly directed the students how to do a task. After the groups had put all their key words on the wall, students were asked to critically look at the mind map and consider if all the key words had been placed in the correct category. This was to help the students notice that some key words were in the wrong place, some belonged in a number of places, and others didn't belong to the mind map at all. The next step was choosing the groups. To do this, every student was asked to write on a post-it which topic he or she was interested in. They were then asked to walk around the room and find other students with the same interest. These students then formed a group. However, if Paula or the other teachers noticed that one group was growing too big, they negotiated so that some children would choose a different area of interest. The result was that children worked in groups of 3 to 5 students. Once groups had been formed, the first task was to design a group logo and put it on the project wall. The project wall was designed to track the progress of each group's project. Each group moved their logo from one phase to another, which clearly indicated what stage they were at. The project goals, which had been decided by both the teachers and the children, were also displayed on the project wall. The groups next collected all the key words for their topic from the mind map. At this stage, they could also come up with more key words. Taking turns, the groups wrote each of these words in a OneNote class notebook that had been prepared by the teachers. The groups then composed sentences using the key words. They took turns doing this. The older or more able children helped the younger or less able children, as not all the students were able to write sentences independently. If the group did not understand the meaning of a key word or why it belonged in their category, they had to devise a question that would provide the answer. They were also asked to think what else they might like to find out about their subject, and to devise questions that would help provide this information. Once a list of questions was devised, the students had to distribute the questions across the group so that each member of the group had some questions to research. To find the answers to their questions, the students used books and the internet. Some of the students also interviewed someone they knew that worked in a medical profession. The groups also used Corinth Classroom Human Biology 1 and 2. They watched it together, made notes based on their topic, and they could also select images which could later be used in their presentations. Having gathered this information, the groups finished writing sentences about the key words. Once the groups had completed this activity, they had to make two decisions. First, how would they represent the knowledge they had learned about their topic at the Wellbeing Fair? And second, what kind of activity task based on this knowledge could they have at their booth at the fair? The groups subsequently divided in two. One half of the group made the knowledge task, the other made the action task, and all groups worked at their own pace. It must also be noted that group evaluation was ongoing throughout the project. Groups reflected after each session, asking questions such as, how did we do today as a group? What went well? What can we do better? And what work needs to be done for the next project lesson? The children working on the knowledge task could again make use of the Corinth Classroom software. As can be seen here, they used it as a source to find images to illustrate the text they had written. They then used PowerPoint and OneNote to make their presentations. The groups came up with many ideas for the action tasks, such as quizzes, using Kahoot, memory tests, and making alias card games. For example, the group that studied nutrition made an alias card game based on healthy food and living habits. The Bones and Muscles group made activity cards which asked participants to do activities such as jumping on one foot for 30 seconds or throwing a ball to your friend 5 times. The Body Parts group drew a large outline of a human and made cards of body parts that the guests had to put in the right place. Each group had to build their own booth for the fair. In the booth, the knowledge task was available on a computer, and guests could also try out the action task. For example, in the Nutrition and Hygiene group booth, one student was responsible for presenting the group's PowerPoint presentation, while the other 2 children invited guests to play the alias card game they had created on the topic. Guests at the fair were also given the opportunity to use the human biology part of Corinth Classroom. About 70 people attended the fair. This included 2 preschool groups, parents and grandparents. Please watch the video again and make note where you see evidence of collaboration. Jot these down and make notes of what level you would code it and why. We are now going to look at this video once more. This time it will highlight evidence of the different levels of collaboration. See how they compare to what you noted. In the previous video, you were presented with a synopsis of how Paula and two other teachers in a first grade classroom in Finland carried out a unit of work entitled Studying the Human Being. In groups of 3 to 5, the children were tasked with designing and creating a presentation and an action task on a particular aspect of the human body, which they would present at a learning fair in the school. This video is also based on this unit of work, but it examines how the students in Paula's classroom are working with others and what is the quality of that collaboration. Just to remind you, when examining a unit of work for collaboration, the following questions are asked. Are the students required to work in pairs or groups? Do students have shared responsibility? Do students make substantive decisions together? And is the students' work interdependent? Working together requires students to work in pairs or groups to discuss an issue, solve a problem, or create a product. Throughout this unit of work, the children were required to work in groups. They had to discuss issues and they had to create products together. For example, as part of the first lesson, the children were required to work in groups and discuss the key words that came to mind when they thought about the human body and well-being. Each group had to agree which key words they would write on a set of sticky notes. The children were later regrouped into groups of 3 to 5. Each of these groups had to work together to plan, research, and represent knowledge about their topic at the learning fair. They also had to plan and create an activity task based on this topic. As they worked together, the students had shared responsibility to develop common products, designs, and responses at various stages across the unit of work. For example, the children in their groups had joint responsibility for deciding which key words they would use to characterise the human body and well-being. Having written these key words on sticky notes, each group also had responsibility in deciding where to place these key words on a mind map. As you can see, this mind map contained a set of categories representing topic headings such as body parts and digestion. Shared responsibility is also in evidence in the next stage of the unit of work. Having collected the key words for their topic from the mind map, group members had joint responsibility to compose sentences using these key words. If the group did not understand the meaning of a key word or why it belonged in their category, they had to devise a question that would provide the answer. Groups were also asked to think about what else they might like to find out about their subject and to devise questions that would help them provide this information. In this way, the group collectively owned the work and was mutually responsible for its outcome. Not only were the children required to share responsibility, but they also had to make substantive decisions together in relation to the content, product, and process of their work. In particular, substantive decisions were made in relation to how the group decided to represent the knowledge they had learned about their topic at the learning fair. In addition, based on this knowledge, they also had to decide what kind of activity task they would design for the fair. In terms of content, students had to decide together what content they wanted to include about their topic. Although they were given a set of key words relating to their topic, they were also asked to think and research what else they might like to include about this topic. They also had to decide how they would represent the knowledge they had learnt at the fair. Similarly, substantive decisions were made by the groups in terms of the action task or product they produced. They had to decide together what action tasks they would create based on their topic. The groups came up with a wide range of action tasks, including quizzes, using Kahoot, memory tests, and making alias card games. Finally, the students made a number of decisions that shaped the process of their work throughout the project. Students continuously planned what each group member would do. For example, the research questions were distributed across the group so that each member of the group had some questions to research. Equally, when preparing for the learning fair, the groups subdivided so that half the group created the knowledge task and the other half created the action task. As well as deciding on the responsibilities of group members, the group also evaluated and reflected after each session, noting what work needed to be done for the next session. Finally, the children's work was interdependent, as it was necessary for all group members to participate in order for the group to succeed. Two clear examples of interdependent work are as follows. First, in order to create the knowledge task or presentation, group members individually composed sentences based on each of the key words. These sentences were used to make a presentation on the topic using OneNote or PowerPoint. To do this, a group of children worked together to determine how to organise the information into a coherent report. Thus, while individual students composed a different sentence for the presentation, the students had to work together to determine how this information could be assembled into a coherent presentation. Second, the children had to work together in order to build and successfully operate their booth at the learning fair. They not only had to negotiate and agree on the knowledge representation task and the action task, but they also had to negotiate and agree on the roles and responsibilities of the group members for the duration of the fair. For example, let's take a look at the Nutrition and Hygiene group booth. The knowledge task was available on a computer, and guests also had to try out the action task, which was an alias game. One student was responsible for presenting the group's PowerPoint presentation, while two other children invited guests to play an alias game. So, to conclude, Paula's unit of work is coded at a 5. This is because students were required to work in pairs or groups, students had shared responsibility, students made substantive decisions together, and the students' work was interdependent. In this lesson, we have seen collaboration in action. In the next lesson, we will explore collaboration in action in your classroom.